Hi, everybody. This week we're going to talk about fairy tales. Fairy tales are kind of funny, aren't they? Because sometimes things happen that aren't so nice. Like the wolf being killed in Little Red Riding Hood, or somebody's always not getting the better end of it. But the thing that they talk about is what it takes to be good and what happens if you're bad. So our story today is about Baba Yaga and Vasilisa the Good. Deep in the birch forest, in a small clearing, lives the ancient, the terrible Baba Yaga. No one knows how old she is because she's always been there in the forest. Baba Yaga is very tall and thin as a skeleton, though she never stops eating. Humans are Baba Yaga's favorite food, and she's always hungry. Indeed, her crooked hut is made of human bones, evidence of her numerous meals. It should be no wonder, then, that Baba Yaga lives alone. Even so, from time to time, there's an occasional visitor, the stray traveler, the hapless wanderer. Few have survived the visit. However, there is one in particular, a young girl whose encounter with Baba Yaga bears repeating. This is how it happened. And I should say that this is a Russian folk tale, so it has a little bit different things we might learn about. At the far edge of Baba Yaga's forest, there lived a mean-spirited woman with her two ill-tempered daughters and her stepdaughter, Vasilisa. Whereas the other girls were cruel and ugly, Vasilisa was kindness itself and beautiful beyond measure. Vasilisa's mother had died when the girl was quite young. Her father soon remarried, more for the child's sake than his own, believing his daughter should have a mother's love as she grew up. But while his intentions were for the good, the result was sadly the opposite. For it was not very long before he too passed away, leaving the orphan Vasilisa at the mercy of her stepmother. While he was alive, the woman pretended affection where there was none, but once free of her husband, she allowed herself to behave as she pleased. All his wealth was entrusted to the stepmother with the understanding she would take care of Vasilisa. Instead, she indulged her two daughters and made Vasilisa's life miserable. The orphan was banished to the coldest, darkest part of the house and given every terrible job to do. The stepdaughters followed their mother's example and delighted in teasing the poor girl when they were not also ordering to do their bidding. It was, "Oh, you lazy girl, why haven't the floor been scrubbed yet? And when will you finish the cooking so you can do the washing?" Vasilisa would have asked for mercy had there been anyone to listen. Certainly she would have run away had there been anywhere to go. Sadly, as it turned out, there was only cold and hard life for her. But for Vasilisa, cruelty made her more kind and compassionate. It seemed her inner voice guided her and gave her strength. And then, if that wasn't enough, she had a special treasure that made it all bearable. It was a doll made by her mother just months before she died. All her mother's love had gone into making that doll. When it was finished, her mother told her, "If you are ever in need, this doll will comfort you." And in truth, by some miracle, the doll did. In other words, it was a plain and simple doll. Indeed, the stepsisters would have never owned such an ordinary one. But The doll was alive. At night, when Vasilisa was left in the darkness of her shabby quarters, she would pour out her hopes and dreams to this small creature. The doll would listen, her eyes glowing like embers, and quietly, so that no one else could hear, she would whisper with loving words of comfort and advice. To have such a treasure made Vasilisa's days shorter and caused her work to seem lighter, and know she was not alone in the world. But as the years went by, the stepmother knew she would never be able to get her daughters married because of the beautiful Vasilisa. So she devised a sinister plan. She told all the girls to sit down by the light of a candle and to do their sewing. And of course, Vasilisa did what she was asked to do. But late at night, the candle had burned down to nothing, and the room went dark. In the darkness, the ugly stepmother's eyes glowed. You see, she was a witch. "Vasilisa," she ordered, "I want you to go to Baba Yaga's house and get us a light." Obediently, Vasilisa went to her room to prepare for the long journey. You see, it would take 2 days to walk there. And the doll was waiting for her. In the dark, the creature's eyes shone like 2 burning candles. "Vasilisa, you look troubled," said the doll. "What's wrong?" "My stepmother has ordered me to fetch a light from Baba Yaga. You know I shall never return." "Listen, my child," said the doll. "Don't despair. You must be brave. Do as your stepmother has told you, but take me with you." Vasilisa set out for Baba Yaga's house, and the night was dark, but thank goodness there was a path through the woods that she could see because the moon was full. Shivering, Vasilisa hugged her doll closer to her heart and continued on her way. After 2 full days, she arrived at Vasilisa's house. She saw it was fearsome, for there stood a huge fence made of bleached bones, and on every fence post a hollow-eyed skull sat staring. The gate was made of bones, the latch was a sharp-toothed mouth, and the bolt was a skeleton's head. On one side of the fence stood Baba Yaga's hut on its rickety stilt of bones. Vasilisa let out a breath. No one's home. At that moment, Baba Yaga could be heard as twigs snapped and leaves rustled. The sounds grew closer and closer, and suddenly out of the dark wood came Baba Yaga, riding a mortal, swinging a pestle in one hand and her broom in the other. Down she swept before the gate, her eyes searching, her nose twitching. "I can hear you hiding there in the birches. Come out at once, or I shall come and get you." Vasilisa felt for her little doll beneath her shawl. The small creature was there. Vasilisa took a deep breath and stepped into the open. She bowed respectfully and, keeping her eyes fixed on the ground, and said, "It is I, Vasilisa. My stepmother has sent me to ask if we may borrow a light." "Is that so?" replied Baba Yaga with a sly smile. "Yes, I know your stepmother and your stepsister too. You might have asked for better relations, my dear. Oh, never mind. You shall have your light, and you may even live to use it. We shall see. But first, you must live here and work for me." They went into the house, and and Baba Yaga asked Vasilisa to get the meal out of the oven. Oh my goodness, you have never seen so much full food. A 12-foot long fish stuffed with wild mushroom and kasha, which is a grain, kind of like we would eat rice. A mountain of paper-thin pancakes called blintzes in butter, and a gallon of beet soup called borscht. At least 16 turnovers called pierogies. All of this the girls served to the ravenous Baba Yaga, who ate every single scrap. Baba Yaga smacked her lips and wiped her mouth. "Tomorrow, while I'm away, I want you to take the bushel of wheat outside the hut and sort it from the chaff. Then sweep the yard, clean the hut, and don't let me find even a speck of dirt anywhere. Wash the linen and cook a fine supper. If all of this isn't done, and done well, I'll have you for my supper." And with that, Baba Yaga shut her eyes and began to snore. Vasilisa sat down in a dark corner and shook her head. Silently, the doll slipped from her pocket. "Don't fret, child. Go to sleep now. Night is no time to solve problems. In the morning, we'll see what should be done." When Baba Yaga awoke, when Vasilisa awoke, Baba Yaga was already gone. So Vasilisa said, "What shall we do?" Just then the doll leaped from her pocket and began running about the yard, found the bushel of wheat, got that work done, swept the whole house, while Vasilisa cooked an incredible dinner, fit for the Tsar. Presently, Baba Yaga returned. In came the tall, bony creature, her black eyes searching the hut, ready to find that the tasks were not completed. Instead, everything was spotless, the wheat separated from the chaff, and a sumptuous meal waiting. "Did you finish?" "Yes," replied Vasilisa. "Please sit. Your supper is ready, and you should eat while it's hot." In spite of herself, Baba Yaga made little sounds of delight as she devoured the delicious supper. Even for her, she ate an enormous quantity. Nevertheless, at the close of the meal, she said, "Since you did so well with the list of tasks tomorrow, I shall expect that you do even more. First, wash every window in the hut, then find the needle I lost years ago in one of the haystacks beyond the yard. When that's been done, remove every particle of dust from the giant barrelful of poppy seeds behind the door, and of course expect an equally splendid meal and supper tomorrow night." Then, after reminding the poor girl that she'd meet a gruesome fate if she failed, Baba Yaga shut her eyes. It might have been a sleepless night for Vasilisa, but the doll comforted her, and they went to sleep. Next day, the same thing happened. The doll did all the work while Vasilisa prepared an elaborate meal. In time, Baba Yaga came home. Almost smiling, Baba Yaga sat down to her supper and didn't stop eating until she finished everything set before her. Only then did she glance at Vasilisa. "You are an excellent cook, my girl." and quite a remarkable housekeeper. But in the area of conversation you leave much to be desired. Don't be so dull. Let's see how brave you are. Ask me a question. But mind, not every answer I give will be your liking." Vasilisa gathered her courage. Somehow, tonight, she felt less afraid of the terrible Baba Yaga. "There is one question I'd like to ask," said Vasilisa. "There are 3 riders who pass through the forest every day." Baba Yaga narrowed her black eyes and gave a laugh. "You are wise to ask one not about me. I don't think kindly of girls who are nosy about my private matters. Very well. Those riders are my faithful knights. The white is daybreak, the red my sun, and the black my night." "Now it's my turn to ask a question," said Baba Yaga. "Just how did you succeed in doing all the many tasks I set for you?" Unwilling to conceal the truth, though she knew she might regret it, Vasilisa replied, "By my mother's love." "Ah!" Baba Yaga could not do anything about love. "Ah, be off with you," she said. "It's time you took yourself home. So here's a little light for your stepmother and stepsisters." She pulled one of the lighted skulls from the fence post and drove it onto a stake, handed it to Baba Yaga, and pushed her out the gate, saying, "Don't forget to give this to them, my dear. Now on your way." Astonished that she had escaped with her life, Vasilisa turned for the hut and set out on her long journey across the forest. The skull stayed lit all night long to lead her way. And at night, the second night, the light came on again, and she arrived home. The house was pitch black. Not a candle burned in any window. "It's late," thought the girl. "Perhaps they're sleeping." Thinking that her stepmother would have no use for light at this hour, she started to leave it outside. Suddenly the skull spoke in a commanding voice. "Take me inside, Vasilisa. Baba Yaga meant you to give me to your stepmother and stepsisters. She will be very cross if you disobey." "Very well," said Vasilisa, and pushed the door open, and to her surprise, all 3 women were sitting there in the dark. The magic the stepmother had worked to kill the household's light had worked only too well. All the time Vasilisa had been away, no candle or torch would come on in the house. Eagerly, the woman rose to take the glowing skull. But now the skull came to life. With a will of its own, the head turned and focused its fiery eyes on the stepmother. Startled, she cried out and tried to flee, but the skull's gaze followed her, and again the blazing light fell upon her. In an instant, she was engulfed in flames and quickly reduced to cinders, and the same fate awaited the stepdaughters. The room was thrown into darkness, and not a sound could be heard. Vasilisa could not stay in that house another moment. She set out again, this time in the direction of the neighboring village. At dawn, weary but resolute, she arrived. An elderly woman with no children of her own willingly took her in, and from that day forward, Vasilisa's life changed for the good. She passed her days peacefully and never did a menial chore again. In fact, she found she had extra time and took up weaving. I want you to take this fabric to the marketplace, Vasilisa told the old woman. There I hope it will command a good price. But the old woman could not bear to sell the fabric. No, she said, it's far too rare and beautiful to sell. Indeed, it's fit only for the royal Tsar himself. With that in mind, she went to the Tsar's palace and presented the exquisite cloth as a gift. His Majesty was sent for. Oh, this is too fine, all the tailors said. We can't possibly cut this fabric. His Majesty must send for the woman who made it. She and no other should cut the fabric. So Vasilisa was sent for, and she came to the palace, and the Tsar fell in love with her at first sight. Forgotten was the cloth and the cutting and the stitching. Vasilisa must be his wife, for he would have no other. What happiness was theirs when Vasilisa consented. They had a magnificent wedding, and it was celebrated with feasting and music and every kind of merriment. And so the most ill-treated of girls grew up to marry a Russian Tsar. Her past sorrows were behind her, and her happiness was complete. But though she was a young woman now and would live many longer years, Vasilisa never put aside her childhood friend, the little doll, who had seen her through so much. Always she kept the little one close, and sometimes, on clear autumn nights, when there was a certain Christmas to the air, they were reminded of the ancient, the terrible Baba Yaga, and would wonder what she was doing now.